We begin tonight with major developments on the terrorism front from all over the world. In Paris today, a man attacked a police officer with a hammer while reportedly shouting, "This is for Syria," before police shot and wounded him. And in Australia, a man of Somali descent killed one and took a woman hostage before police shot him dead. ISIS is claiming responsibility. But first, new details are emerging about missed opportunities to Saturday's attack in London. Karam Butt, one of the 3 London terrorists, even appeared in a British documentary called The Jihadis Next Door. London police haven't yet confirmed it's him in the video, but several media organizations have verified its authenticity. Take a look.
Only English white person who's a non-Muslim was part of our group, but because he's white and he's English, he can go, but all of us that were just praying, we have to stay. This is the reality.
This is the reality.
This is the reality. Don't forget all the laws and all this. This is the reality.
There's no reason for us to be detained. There's no evidence.
We were just praying. We can't pray as well.
Now, Greg, it might be easiest for, hindsight is 2020, and looking back, like the jihadis next door might give you a clue that they are actually next door. But do you know if they are actually going to be violent? At what point can the police intervene? And that seems to be like the big question tonight. Like, how do you deal with this overall?
You know what is so strange about this story, about the documentaries, that whenever you watch a movie, what do you see at the end? You see roughly 100 names, credits, from directors, the writers, the stuntmen, the hair and makeup, the caterers, grips. There could be hundreds of names. And I'm just wondering how many of them felt compelled to do something when they see the content of the subject that they're looking at. There are many people who knew about this person because they worked on the film, but they didn't do anything about it because of the same thing that we always talk about, fear of being called a racist or Islamophobic, which allows a force field so you can't touch them. I'm thinking, what if you divorced religion from their murderous assertions? Then you would have a serial killer. And what if a serial killer announced before he was going to serial kill his plans publicly beforehand, like one of these terrorists did when they were in an airport in Italy when he says, "I'm going to fight terror"? That is not a crime, but you could actually institutionalize them because they're insane. If somebody says that they're going to embark on mass murder, you could probably, out of the threat, or that he might be mentally ill, put them away. These people are insane. Put them away.
But, and that, I actually think, Kimberly, from a legal standpoint, I'm interested in this line. So there are laws in Britain, and also we have some here, that say, like, if you do this or that, like if you pledge allegiance to ISIS, then you can be taken into custody. But how long do you keep them? What are the charges? How do you defend them? The other thing that's amazing is that they were on public benefits.
This just gets more amazing by the minute, doesn't it? It's just so disgusting and appalling because, listen, we have to, like bend over backwards to accommodate people that want to murder innocent women and children and destroy everyone's well-being and the life that we know that we live every day. It's sad to me because we are really hindering the ability of law enforcement to do the job that they have been sworn to do, to protect and serve. And instead, it's like they want to give apologies to people like this who are telling us directly what it is that's in their hearts, that's in their minds. They are forecasting their intentions, but that's still not good enough. What do you want? Like, only after the fact that the act is completed, that's sufficient? That's not what the law says. If you can catch people like this conspiring and you can catch like an act in furtherance of, that should be sufficient. And now look, the world has to see this. Can you imagine how offensive and just deeply disturbing it is to the family members that have to watch these videos and hear these words and know that these people were identified and on the radar and absolutely nothing was done? Whose side are you playing for? That's what bothers me so much. I mean, I don't understand. Just, mail it in, hand it over to them. We're sorry. Are you offended? Have we offended your rights to kill us? That's what I don't get. And we're seeing it play out in London, and it's playing out throughout the world, and it's playing out here in the United States. And people are mad about tweets instead.
The MI5, Jesse said in 2015, they're under unprecedented pressure, and today they say that they have 3,000 targeted high risk, or jihadis that they are watching. They have 500 who are high risk, and they have 20,000 that are former jihadists that they're watching. So you have a risk management problem in terms of resources.
You do. It's hard to prioritize these animals. And the guy, Butt, I think was his name, he was low to moderate risk. So could
Right.
you imagine the high-risk guys that you're looking
Right.
at?
Exactly.
And I can't believe this guy was on welfare, the welfare terrorists. That would be the New York Post headline the next day.
Welfare jihad.
Welfare jihad. If you're holding up an ISIS flag in the middle of the city, that should be a red flag. That guy should go from medium threat level to high threat level. They're enemies of the state. Greg's right. They're serial killers. If someone walks like a terrorist and talks like a terrorist, they're probably a terrorist. What you are is, if you're a terrorist sympathizer or appear in a video, you're an unlit fuse. And all it takes is one strike of a match, and kaboom, and people are dead. So British authorities have to start rounding up unlit fuses right away because they can't let this stuff happen over and over again. It's kind of like child pornography. You treat it like an offense that it's a one-strike policy. So if someone shows an interest in distributing and disseminating child pornography, or is online talking about it, boom, throw the book at them.
Right.
You got to do the same thing with jihadists.
One of the things that we've been worried about for like the past 5 or 6 years is that you were going to have Westerners who were traveling to Syria for training, and because they have a Western passport, they were going to be able to come back. The other thing that's happened is that radicalization is sped up. So as ISIS shrinks, its territory is shrunk. They are out now basically deputizing everybody around the world and saying, don't wait for us, don't even come here to the caliphate, don't try to, just try to do your work there. And the radicalization is sped up so much that now they actually have terrorists that are younger and younger. So to Jesse's point, I understand like the desire to try to round them up, but and then what do you do with them from there? And like what are the charges if they are actually citizens of Western countries?
It's very difficult, and again, what you can do in the situation that you just described is you can, if people have dual passports, then take away their, for example, British citizenship so they can't come back in the country.
Revoke or suspend.
So you can take those steps. But I just wanted to respond to what I was hearing and say, Britain's had experience with this before in terms of the Irish issues. Remember the Northern Irish, what they call the Troubles over in Britain, right?
Right.
And what they did then was they created almost basically internment camps, right? And what they found was it wasn't effective. In fact, it became a recruitment tool for Irish terrorism as it was being perpertrated in Britain.
Well,
so,
that's what people said around the world about Gitmo.
Well, that's what people said.
I mean, they don't. I think Islamic terrorism is. I understand terrorism is terrorism, but I do think that this threat is different, especially because at their height, the MI5 would say that when they were during the Troubles, they had about 103 people who were
correct.
their targets.
So I was coming
now I'm
to that.
I just mentioned 23, almost 24,000 that we
know of.
So
you come to 2 points. One is the one you're making. You have such a large pool of people, such a large pool of people, and the question becomes, do you want thought police? I mean, so you can't,
It's not
if
thought
you put
police,
up a flag.
It's acts in furtherance of, and it
Hang
should
on.
be enough.
Let me make my point.
Well,
That
I'm
if
the
you
lawyer
make-
here, and I'm
if
telling you what you're saying is not accurate.
Well, what I'm saying is very accurate, so allow me to make it,
police.
which is that if you have a flag, as we saw in that documentary, if you are saying outrageous things, at what point does that then become evidence of extremism or intent to incite violence? And one of the problems that Theresa May, the Prime Minister, has made is that, and she was in charge of Homeland Security for the Brits before she became Prime Minister, she said, it's hard to define extremism under law in a way that's effective, and that they're still struggling in Britain with this issue.
What about,
wait,
providing material support on behalf of a terrorist? Does
Well,
that
that
count
would
for
be
you? Because
different.
that's the law.
But as we just heard, and this came up today because of a YouTube thing that was about how to use a truck to kill people, so the YouTube thing was eventually taken down when the Wall Street Journal called YouTube. But at what point is that material support?
Well, it's more than
Kimberly?
just speech, Juan. If you're speaking about jihad and you're trying to encourage the overthrow of the British government, and you're talking about imposing Sharia law on the country, unfurling an ISIS flag, and your known associates are a radical cleric who's been imprisoned, someone that's blown himself up, someone that's on a watch list, and you're a member of a band group, you pile all that together.
And you
if you're the authorities,
but that's Dana's point, isn't it? Dana just said, by that standard, people looking around saying, now, who qualifies? You've got about 23,000 people.
Well, at least that they know of.
Well,
Greg, make a point?
You know who qualifies in this modern age under this ruse of hate speech you can be guilty of hate speech as long as you belong to a certain group. And it's really, really hard to go after radical Muslims because you will be portrayed as going after an aggrieved group. I remember climate change. There were climate change people in the media who said that if you were a climate change skeptic, you should be imprisoned.
Right.
Those are the same people that would scoff at you for deporting hate-filled imams. They would call you a bigot for doing that. When people are enraged over the death of innocent people, they often offer solutions. And I think we've offered lots of solutions. Trump offers solutions. A lot of people do. What's interesting is there's an entire oppositional side of critics who offer no solutions. They stop at this like, but what about this or what about that? And while condemning the people that come up with the solutions, once you come up with a solution, they go, my God, if you come up with any kind of tool, whether it's a ban or it's vetting or it's a new law.
What about surveillance? I was going to ask you about surveillance. Remember the NYPD coming under such attack by the Associated Press?
Right. So what happens?
Surveillance.
Yeah, what happens is when you come up with some kind of alternative or some kind of plan, they will accuse you of being a bigot from a perch of their own cowardice, where they offer false sentiment on Twitter, where they say, what about their rights? When there are radical hate speech imams out there who are creating a lot of this rap.
Greg, I don't think Theresa May is going to be intimidated by saying that she's politically correct. She is trying to stop it. I think the mayor of London, everybody wants to stop it. The question is one of constitutional rights, your rights to privacy, to free speech, to organize, to assemble. And how do we make that conform with the fact that we are battling these monsters? We don't want to become the monsters.
But
well, the monsters will eat us alive if we do nothing.
Well, no, nobody said do nothing. Why do you say do nothing?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying do everything.
Yeah, he's saying also tolerance can make you dead.
But I don't want to be dead.
If you're too tolerant, if you're too politically
But you haven't provided any ideas or solutions.
No, I think there are lots of...
No, you do. You criticize and find fault with everybody that tries to come forward with an idea.
That's not the case.
And impugn them because you think that they have bad intentions and a bad heart because they want to make people safe and fight terrorism.
Kimberly, that's not what I'm doing.
Give me one idea of what we can do.
What I just gave you one a moment ago in terms of stopping people from coming back in by denying them their passport to your country. I told you that. But I mean, there are other examples as well. The question is how you do it in an effective way, not just blanket, loud rhetoric that says, oh, they're bad people.
What is the basis
that's not what people are saying. They're bad people. They're trying to figure out ways. They are. But every time you try to offer some kind of constructive, or maybe sometimes it's an emotional response, you are taking a risk in this society of being called something. So what that does is it tamps down the actual debate, so people don't want to talk about it. We have to loosen the screws here and allow people to talk about the ideas that may be considered dangerous in order to reach maybe some kind of decision that isn't dangerous. But we can't stop the debate by going, no, we can't talk about that. We should be able to talk about...
I don't see that as reality.
That's every day in the media.
In fact, there is so much fear right now about terrorists in a place like London that the question is whether or not people go overboard.
No, there's also fear of people being labeled a bigot, too.
I don't think that. I just don't see that. I never hear that from any public official.
All right, well.